Hello to the vaping community and everyone out there on YouTube. I am the Salty Vapor, Chris Jordan, and we are here tonight to do a review. What are we going to review? We're going to review this guy, which is the clone of the Marquis RDA. Rebuildable dripping atomizer by Tobeco. This is, I'm kind of conflicted on this atomizer, as you'll see as we go along. Where can you find it? How much will it cost? You can, and this is just the first place that came up when I typed it in, but it also happens to be the place where I purchased mine, is eciggity.com. eciggity.com. And again, this is the Marquis clone by Tobeco. It will run you $16.99. Not a bad price given that the original is $140. You also have to pay shipping, obviously, but eciggity does pretty well on shipping. Okay, the product description. This unique RDA is like the Veritas, except it comes with 2 airflow holes. It includes coil rods to build easier on the deck! Exclamation point. So I suppose I should have I should have said, it includes coil rods to build easier on the deck. But that's what the description says there. The Marquis clone RDA has a huge juice well, and it's hard to leak because of the way it is built. It includes 1 Marquis RDA by Tobeco. That would be this. 1 wide bore drip tip. That is what they are calling this guy, although as you will see, you can fit another drip tip inside of that drip tip and get a really long, ridiculous looking drip tip, and the whole top cap just came off. 1 4mm 510 drip tip adapter, 1 flush 510 drip tip adapter, 2 2.5 and 3 millimeter coil rods, and 2 3.5 and 4 millimeter coil rods. And what that essentially means, and you can see this better in the up close, these coil rods, they have one end is, let's say 2 millimeters or 2.5 millimeters, and one end is 3 millimeters. So there's a difference in size on each end. And there's 2 each of them, 2 each of the coiling rods. Decent vapor from this one. So what I want to do now is take you in for an up close, down and dirty look at the Marquis RDA clone by Tobeco. We're going to do a re-wick, not a rebuild, and I've got some rather interesting logic here. I'm doing the re-wick for you because it is a difficult RDA to wick, and I kind of want to show you how I do it, show you how difficult it is, but I'm not going to do a build on it because the build I found is hard enough to do off camera. It is near impossible to do on camera because of some of the issues with the clone. But I'm kind of off camera. I'm kind of starting to work with the learning curve and starting to get a little bit better with the builds. The first build, it literally took me. I wasted literally like 6 coils before I got it down because as we'll see, there are some center pin issues, and my build kept spinning and twisting, and it was a mess. So at this point I'm a little bit better, but it is still near impossible to do on camera. So I'll show you the builds, I'll show you the re-wicking, and and we'll talk about some of the issues and problems. So with that, let's go ahead and go down and dirty with the Marquis RDA clone by Tobeco. Okay folks, here we are up close with the Marquis RDA clone by Tobeco. And we'll take a look first at some of the things that you get in the package. The actual package, unfortunately, I was a bad boy, and I accidentally threw that away. But it was not very impressive. It was, you know, as a lot of the Tobeco clones are, it was just in a plain, thin cardboard box. And everything was just kind of stuffed in there. Not very impressive presentation at all, but nevertheless, it is a goodie packed RDA. Lots of goodies, as we can see here. We'll start first with the actual RDA, and it is right here. Very simple, clean design, no branding, couple of airflow holes there. You can set it up for single or dual coil, and there are advantages to both. There's your center pin there on the bottom, not really adjustable. It appears that it might be, but it is simply attached to that center post, and messing around with it will mess your build up. And as we'll see, you really have to crank it down to get to get the center pin not to spin, the positive post not to spin. It does, as you can see there, it does protrude out a fair amount, to the point where I would think that it would be okay on most hybrid mods. Kind of a borderline call on this one, but it does protrude out a bit. Next, we have our standard blue screwdriver. Few O-rings, few replacement O-rings, and some replacement screws. And it has that wide flange screw that goes on the positive post that we'll get a better look at when we look at the build. We have these building posts that again we'll see the purpose of a little bit more when we look inside the RDA. Next we have this guy, which is sort of like the top cap. It fits right in here and presses in, and it has the O-ring, as you can see there, and then you can use one of these various, they're essentially all 510 adapters. This one, however, is so long that it can be used as a drip tip itself, and you can see then that pops out. Sometimes that's a challenge to get in. You can also, with this looks pretty ridiculous, but you can still fit a standard 510 drip tip into that, and then the top cap comes off. If you don't want to use this, and this is the only place there's branding actually, you can see that M for Marquis a little bit there. Very hard to see that unless you get it in the right light. The M for Marquis, so technically this is a logoed clone. They could have left that M off, in my opinion, but it is faithful to the original design. If you don't want to use that as its own drip tip, you can use these shorter. This is the 4mm drip tip adapter, just to show you how this looks, sort of like that. And if that's still too long for you, you can use this flush 510 drip tip adapter. It screws on like so. The drip tip fits right in there, and bam, right on your RDA. Not quite. This O-ring is just the biggest pain in the world. You have to line it up just perfectly before, there it goes, before it will fit in there. So there's that look. This is just a cheap drip tip from my local brick and mortar. So those are the parts and pieces. I think for now we will just utilize that wide bore drip tip on there, and that's that. So so let's go ahead and get inside this RDA here and take a look at my build, and we'll pull the old wick out and re-wick it, and talk about some things inside of the RDA. Here we are, nice and up close with the internals of this Marquis RDA clone by Tobeco. You can see the build deck there, a very different kind of design. You can see that there's actually more branding on the inside than the outside of the RDA, which is interesting. You can see my coils there, which are spewing juice everywhere, but otherwise glowing nice and unevenly. Have to fix that. You can see this interesting positive post here, which if you watch other reviews, you know, this is kind of the central feature, the most innovative feature of this, and the airflow, I suppose, of this particular RDA, and you know, the build post that we'll see here. So has a nice deep juice well. Has the build is so-so. The screws all feel kind of cheap. This positive post feels kind of cheap, and these are the things that I'm imagining are much better on the original. I don't have one. If I ever get one, I'll certainly do a comparison, but given their limited availability and incredibly high price tag, I'm not necessarily seeing my getting one, but stranger things have happened. Maybe I'll get a wild hair and decide to purchase one of these Marquis drippers. It is tempting because of the flavor, which is definitely one of the big pros and one thing that everybody talks about. But let's look at some different parts of the innovative parts of the internal here. And the first thing I would like to show you here is this is how the build posts work. And underneath your coils here, there are little holes, and these build posts will fit down and into those holes and kind of click into place. And I think the idea is that you can sort of put this post down in the hole, wrap your coil, you know, set it on your screws, position it, and then pull this out. This is a very you know, I know it's difficult to tell in the up close, but this is a very small rod, and I find it very difficult to build on, even off of the RDA. It's difficult to wrap your coils on, so I stick with my Coil Master or just a micro screwdriver, as depending on my mood. But you can get an idea of you know, how you could in theory go about doing that, and I'll show you why, you know, kind of how to go about building. You know, you kind of wrap your coil as you would a K-fun, with both of your leads coming out on opposite sides. You can kind of see just by the way this is, you know, a lead coming out here and a lead coming out here. You wrap around your negative post, and then you come up here. You run it along this edge, and then you bring it out, and then trim it up here, and that's sort of how you place your coil. Now that is much easier said than done. You know, off camera it's kind of a challenge, because this positive post, this little crown looking positive post, on the clone version, it just spins like crazy until you get it really cranked down with your 510 pin, and at which point it is doable to actually get your build in there. But it took me a while to figure that out, and my first few builds were a disaster. So you can kind of see there how that might be a challenge. And a lot of people have said that you can leave your positive screw in, bring it kind of underneath it, and then up and around. I found that not necessarily to be the case on the clone. This is another area where I think the original may be far superior, but on this version at least, I found it very difficult to get the wire placed in this crown without taking the screw all the way out. And then once you get the screw all the way out, getting the screw back in with your wires there is a challenge. And I dropped the screw when I tried to do this on camera, I dropped the screw 3 or 4 times, nearly lost the screw, was down on my hands and knees looking for it, and kind of gave up on doing the build. I thought I'd just sort of describe the build to you here on camera. And you know, check out some of the other videos. You know, they have, you know, this is one of the few videos out there on the clone, but there are some videos of the original that have a detailed look at how you place your build in there. So check those out. I think Phil Basardo definitely has a nice look at that. But as it is, this is the build that I got in there. It's so finicky, I don't want to mess with it. But what I am going to do is show you how to rewick it, because rewicking it is nearly as or more difficult than building it, and it takes some doing. So I have here some kind of pre-made wicks. We'll see if they work. We may have to go back to the drawing board and do some more wicks also, because I'm not sure how these are going to react to my coils until I get down there close. But got a couple wicks here to kind of show you how you go about wicking this. You just, you know, and the Marquis definitely does not need a lot of wick. This isn't, you know, one where you're just going to stuff, you know, for one, it's vertical coils, so you're not going to jam pack it with with cotton or anything like that. It has a nice deep juice well. So juice capacity is not the problem, but you don't necessarily want to fill that up with wick. So you kind of put your wick. I'm going to do a really unprofessional camera adjustment here. You get your wick in there like so. You can see it kind of pushing through the bottom there, and then you get your tweezers, and these tweezers that I have are really nice. If you see some of these out and available, pick them up. I bought them at an auction, so I can't really tell you where you can find them, but they have like nice little locking grooves there, and this nice curved, and that makes it really handy for building and wicking things. So so you get your tweezers underneath there, and then the way that I found easiest is to get your cotton through there, very messy and raggedly, and just pull it through. Again, easier said than done. Now it's coming on through, and it kind of will twist. Your build up a bit there, and then I trim up kind of the messy end of my cotton, and then you can take a screwdriver or one of your building rods, and then just tuck that cotton back in like so, and you do and then of course after you get that in, then you really need to straighten your build up, get everything straight in there with your build, because when you wick it, it tends to pull your build around a bit. So that's one side wicked. I think we'll call that good for the moment, and go back up top, talk about the pros and the cons, vape on it with this nice new clean wick, and call it a review. So see you in one moment. We are back up top with the Marquis RDA clone by Tobeco. I have re-wicked it completely. I have dripped some delicious Carnage by Animal, which I'm nearly out of, and I'm very sad about that. And broken in the cotton a bit to show you how it vapes. Cotton's still a little bit not broken in, but it's getting there. The RDA does have great flavor. The flavor on this one is on par with, the best RDAs that I've tried. It also has really nice whooshy airflow. The airflow is again just about perfect for me. Another pro. It has lots of options and extras with it. We saw all those in the up close, the building rods and the various 510 drip tip adapters. Again, that similar, exactly the same with the original. The original comes with lots of stuff. The building rods are kind of an innovative little feature, and help with positioning your coils. Not so much building, but positioning your coils on the deck. Very innovative 3-piece design. This easily removable top cap is a nice feature. I wish that on this clone it was just as easily put back on the top there, but it's not. It's very hard to get on. The machining on this part, the top cap, the drip tip, is done very, very well. The machining on this part, not so much, but we'll talk about that in the cons. So yeah, those are pretty much all the pros that I would care to name. The cons, that positive post, that crown-shaped positive post on this particular clone, it just spins so badly, and until you crank down your 510 pin, and hold that crown with some pliers and crank down your 510 pin, it just spins like crazy. And even after that, even after you crank it down, it's not the tightest center post in the world. Tends to be very, very spinny, largely because of that wonky positive center post crown thingy. It's very difficult to build on, and even, you know, it's just a very tight build deck. Again, you know, you've got this huge block of metal on one side that would normally be open, you know, and that's there, you know, I'm guessing to so it has those Veritas style side airflow ports, and supposedly prevents leaking, which it sort of does, but because of that, you're left with very little open space in which to build. So that would be very similar on the original. You know, it's kind of a challenge to build on. The screws on this clone are not great. They don't trap your wires very well. They seem kind of rounded. The screw holes themselves don't seem machined very well. So the whole build deck on this clone, very wonky. It's also very difficult to wick, as we saw there. You know, there's so little space. There's just enough space to get some very small tweezers in there and kind of pull the wick out to the side, to pull it through, and then you gotta jam it back in there in a very tight space. Not very easy to build on. Also, this tends to be a very messy atomizer. My hands, just from doing this review, my hands are just completely sticky from e-liquid, and part of it is this top cap. It tends to condense all around this top cap. It tends to condensation tends to come out of these holes. It gets all over the build deck, condenses. So if you actually take the barrel off, take this whole top cap off, then it you know, the build deck and the O-rings are just always covered in e-liquid that is condensed in there. So it tends to be a very messy atomizer. Parts of the atomizer, and we've already talked about this, seem to be very cheaply made, especially parts around the build deck. Seem to be very cheaply made. The screws on this seem to be very poorly chosen, rounded kind of screws in there, very difficult to trap your wires. That crown positive post, very thin metal, easily bent, and just, again, spins like crazy. The building rods, not so great for building. I think that was their purpose. They're too small, the deck is too tight, and even if you try to take them off the deck and try to coil them, just using them like a screwdriver, they're still so tiny to hold. Not so useful for building. which brings me kind of to my last point, which is O-rings. The O-rings on this atomizer are just so terrible. I can't tell you. They're too tight. So once you get your top cap on, and you need to see, even getting this top cap on, it takes an incredible amount of force. And then once you get it on, lining your airflow holes up is again nearly impossible. So unless you're lucky enough to just guess, oh, and there's the other problem. See, now that top cap is so tight, it has torn a piece of my O-ring off of there, and just kind of, that's hard to see, but this is actually important enough that I will adjust my zoom for you to see better here. See that piece of O-ring just hanging off there? That is because that the O-rings are so tight that the top cap cuts into them when you put it on, and it makes it nearly impossible to line up the top cap correctly. Now, I see there. Oh, let me fix my focus. I guessed exactly right on the top cap, which is the only thing you can do, because if you don't do that, then in order to adjust your airflow, you end up cranking on your 510 connection on your mod, which is not good for that. And so again, those O-rings just so terrible. The O-ring on this, it's very loose to take off, but then when you put it back on, it is just a pain. See, I push down, pops back up. Oh, now it finally popped on. You push down, doesn't go on. Reposition, push down, doesn't go back on. There it goes back on. So, like, it comes off so easily. Why it's so hard to get back on seems to defy the laws of physics to me, but nevertheless, that is the case with this atomizer. The O-rings just wonky all around. Still tastes great. So with all that said, what is my final recommendation? Could I recommend this atomizer? You know, given the pros and the cons, I would not recommend this RDA to anyone. I think that there are probably better clone versions out there, and I might very well try another clone version and get back with you. I think the authentic version is probably worlds better. I can imagine they paid attention to details like O-rings and screws and spinning positive posts and things like this, because I haven't heard any other reviewers complain about that with the authentic. I've heard other reviewers complain about how difficult it is to wick. Some have complained about it being difficult to build on. Those things, I would imagine, you know, whether you have the clone or the authentic, those are going to be issues. But the ease of use of this clone by Tobeco, this Marquis RDA clone by Tobeco, the ease of use rating is just, I would rate so poorly. You know, on a 1 to 10 scale, the ease of use on this thing, I would rate it about a 2, because it's just not very easy to use. It's a hard to like atomizer. It's, you know, after getting this review done, there's a good chance I might put this away and never use it again. There's also a chance I might replace those O-rings with some more appropriate ones, and see if that does anything for me. if I can somehow MacGyver this RDA into being more useful. It does have great flavor, great airflow. I would imagine they are probably as good or better on the original. If you can get your hands on an original, I think that would be an interesting purchase. If I could get my hands on an original for $100 or less, I would certainly consider that. As it is, $16.99 from eSiggity. This is the Marquis RDA clone, and I just can't recommend it. So thank you for joining me for this review. Next up on the review queue, we'll be looking at a Derringer RDA clone, also by Tobeco, and see how that little guy performs. So until then, this is Chris Jordan, the Salty Vaper, signing off. Y'all have a good night, good week, and happy vaping. Thanks, everybody.